When you're considering the best value for money watches from Switzerland, you have to mention Tissot. And in this video, we look at a watch that delivers on this concept and producing arguably the best value for money Swiss chronometer that you can have with the 1938 by Tissot COSC. Tissot, by pretty much any metric, is a legendary Swiss watch brand, dating back to 1853 based in Lac, Switzerland, acting as a gateway into the world of Swiss watchmaking for so many enthusiasts from the community, as well as the mass market. Tissot offers a number of other impressive value propositions within their heritage collection, with many calling back to the specific watches in the brand's archive that I was actually fortunate enough to see when I visited a couple years ago. But last year, we saw the introduction of the Chronometer 1938. It was a 42mm automatic chronograph intended to celebrate and modernize an archive piece from that year. And although this was a very interesting piece, I think because of its higher price point and its larger size compared to maybe what somebody would be looking for a heritage style piece, made it harder and less viable compared to what you would maybe think normally. But now enter in the new Heritage 1938 COSC, a 3-watch collection offering incredible and seldom seen value for a COSC certified watch from Switzerland, priced at $825 for the 3-hand salmon and anthracite dial variants. And the collection also includes an elevated model at $1,050, known as the Heritage Small Seconds 1938 COSC, that offers an elevated caliber, date function, and you guessed it, small seconds. Yet for the sake of this video and talking about the positioning of value for money, I'm going to be looking at the traditional 3-hand variants. I have the salmon dial on my wrist here today because I do think that helps tell the story when you're dealing with this concept of value for money, because it is very hard to beat. And if you've been watching this video so far and you're hearing acronyms like COSC, don't really know what this means, I'd recommend checking out our article down below, looking at our comprehensive guide to chronometers and also going into other levels of testing standards for different brands. We're looking at master chronometer certifications, Patek Philippe's seal and what they deliver when they are testing out their watches, Grand Seiko testing standards, and much more. We get into the history, all the details, so that you can come out of the tail end of that knowing a lot more about the subject and probably appreciating the watch that we're looking at here today a bit more as well. While these watches are attractive and compelling for a number of reasons, this collection's single strongest selling point is the inclusion of a COSC certified at a caliber on the inside from Switzerland. So if you haven't come across this acronym of COSC, this is referring to the Swiss testing body that certifies movements as chronometers. The chronometer certifications in basic terms mean that at a minimum, a particular movement has been individually tested for 15 days in 5 positions and at 3 different temperatures, guaranteeing a watch to run between -4 to +6 seconds per day, a rate that is excellent for any mechanical watch. For anyone that takes accuracy very seriously, and I know that is many people out there, COSC certifications are a great way to have that peace of mind that your watch will keep you as close to perfect time as mechanical timekeeping generally allows. Since the testing body is aware of the marketing upside that comes with a COSC certification, it does cost money for a brand to send in its movements to be tested, as well as the extra quality control costs internally that come with testing these movements before sending. Because the last thing you want to do as a brand is to send out watches to be chronometer certified and then not pass the test. So brands typically have some pretty stringent testing standards internally first to make sure that they can pass those tests. The certification nowadays is typically associated with luxury tier brands like Rolex, for example, who still use the test. And prior to this release, many of the outliers in value for COSC certifications were from brands like Mito and Certina, but this new collection from Tissot undercuts both of them by a couple $100 here. In the process, sitting significantly under $1,000. Beyond the certification, the movements utilized here are some of the most common and proven Swiss calibers in history, with the basic 3-hand model leaning into the venerable ETA 2824 and the small seconds offering the 2895-2, a small second variant of the elevated and thinner 2892. The inclusion of either of these standard ETA calibers comes as a bit more of a shock when discussing modern Tissot, which almost always employs its Powermatic series of calibers with their extended 80 hours of power reserve and reduced beat frequency. So you don't get the longer reserve here, but you do get that smoother sweep of the second hand that comes with the standard 4 Hz calibers, as well as a more traditional regulating organ for easier regulation. Visible through exhibition casebacks, the movements are finished to a utilitarian degree, but do offer a few polished components, a visible jewel or two, and a gold tone rotor that caps off the presentation. To recap some of the specifications here, you have 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 Hz. It does feature hacking and hand winding. Hacking stop in the second hand when you pull the crown to the farthest position, and does have a power reserve of 38 hours. And just as a side point, this is, I think, something that some people have an issue with, but when you do pull the crown to the second point, you do have a date position. Now you aren't going to see anything happen, but to actually adjust the time, you have to pull the crown out further, even though there is no date. Beyond the caliber and certification, this Heritage 1938 COSC serves up a solid dimension set and clean case finishing for the price. Measuring 39 millimeters in diameter, 11.3 millimeters thick, and a 46.4 millimeter lug to lug, the new watch presents a solid wearing experience for the vast majority of wrists out there. As a note, the elevated small second version comes in just a bit thinner, measuring at 9.8 millimeters as opposed to 11.3 millimeters, thanks to that 2895 caliber lying within. Now, in either case, the 1938 utilizes versatile 20 millimeter lugs, with both of the 3-hand models opting for the vintage style leather straps with straightforward pin buckles. The small seconds, on the other hand, serves up an additional hit of refinement with the Milanese style mesh bracelet. Case architecture is straightforward with traditional case and lug shape, complemented by a brush finish almost everywhere you look, except for the slender sloping bezel and T-sign onion style crown. Given the use of a snap-on caseback and traditional push-pull crown, the collection is rated for 50 meters of water resistance, which should be more than enough for a watch that has this dressier positioning. Set beneath a very lightly domed sapphire crystal, the dial also strikes an intriguing balance of heritage aesthetics and modern finishing standards. At around the $800 price tier, you have the option of either going for a matte black dial shade that the brand calls anthracite, or this pleasing salmon color, both of which offer an almost minimalist approach to design while celebrating the late 1930s era that inspired this collection. At the outskirts, a textbook railway-style track denotes the minutes, with stylized Arabic indices located just within. Now, upon first inspection, these hour markers look printed. However, they are in fact ever so slightly raised from the central surface, adding a measure of depth to the otherwise flat surface that is only interrupted by Tissot's old school word mark, which I absolutely love, at 12 o'clock, and then the chronometer text at 6 that might be a little bit larger than necessary, though given its positioning of falling in a price range that normally doesn't offer this sort of certification, it is probably better to be more lucid on this point than not. Managing the time of day is a set of hands, color matched to the hour markers, and if you need a bit more going on, the small seconds version dial provides a minute track and small seconds register in contrasting colors, as well as the addition of a date function. With this being a true dress watch in both form and function, there is no luminescent material to speak of, meaning reading time in darker conditions will still require the help of the sun or some other light source. So Tissot in the last few years has taken off with the enthusiast crowd, which is great to see because this brand has always had a special place near and dear to me, because this was the brand that was responsible for being the first Swiss watch that I ever owned. Yet with the explosion of something like the PRX, there are probably many that have forgotten the other great watches and general focus Tissot has on delivering top bang for buck in Swiss watchmaking. Looking a little bit further here at some of the cons, and then we'll shift to the pros, the primary point for me is going to be the power reserve here. When covering and wearing Tissot watches, I have just come now to expect 80 hours of power reserve as a standard. Is that fair or not? I don't really know, but the absence of that here makes me realize how many brands have been spoiling us to this point when it comes to power reserves. And a smaller point is that this watch might still be a little bit larger for some. I think it commercially is a good size and pick, but since this watch is informed by classic mid-20th century design, I could see those that are attracted to this idea that also desire a case size that fits with that aesthetic and approach. But this is less of a point compared to the power reserve in my opinion. Now, shifting over to the pros, we have to start with the COSC certification. Now, although Tissot watches I find anecdotally run very well, especially with the Powermatics, there is a level of peace of mind that comes from getting that cosign from a third party that this movement went through its extended paces. Is the COSC certification partly a marketing tool? Well, of course. but its accuracy standard is legitimate, and to find it at this price is remarkable. Now, the finishing on the case and the dial is quite solid. I really enjoy the salmon dial color and the illusion of the indices where they appear printed, only to surprise you as you look closer. And finally, despite the lack of power reserve on the ETA 2824, there are some upsides in comparison to that of the Powermatic. You are getting a higher beat frequency, a traditional regulating organ, and a movement with the touch of that rotor that simply does look better. So is this watch going to supplant the PRX in terms of fanfare and just being this craze that we've seen in the last few years? Probably not. But it certainly deserves to be in the growing conversation with its COSC movement and timeless looks. And it serves as another reminder of Tissot's dominating position on delivering unquestionable value in Swiss watchmaking. But all right, guys, that's my video today looking at this new Tissot 1938 COSC collection. I am a big fan of this watch. I know it hasn't been getting as much buzz because of some of the other releases from Tissot recently, but if you're looking at where it separates from the competition, I think it's very unique. And I think it's another great point to show that Tissot is much more vast than what maybe people realize in terms of their product offering. What are your thoughts on these watches? Leave some comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also check out TeddyBaldassarre.com, full authorized dealer of 30 brands, including Tissot. Quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. How we're able to fund all of our productions here is through selling watches on our site. So if you're in the market for a watch, we would absolutely love to have your business. It allows us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we absolutely love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.